Good morning, America. The Secret Service director resigns. Trump and Harris on the trail. President Biden addresses the nation tonight. Breaking overnight, new body cam video from the assassination attempt on Donald Trump shows the shooter on the roof. And this morning, what Donald Trump's rallies might look like going forward after the Secret Service director steps down.
Vice President Kamala Harris in the battleground state of Wisconsin.
We trust women to make decisions about their own body and not have their government tell them what to do.
Focusing on abortion, inflation, and voting rights.
Donald Trump back on the trail for the first time since President Biden dropped out of the race, heading to North Carolina. As President Biden prepares to address the nation tonight, and the Israeli Prime Minister gets set to address Congress and meet with Biden, Harris, and Trump.
The investigation into the fatal police shooting of Sonia Massey. Records show the deputy charged in her death worked for 6 different agencies in 4 years.
ABC News exclusive. The former ballerina at the center of the so-called Black Swan murder trial.
People who don't even know me have this idea of a monster when they think of me.
Charged with killing her estranged husband, speaking out for the first time.
Explosion at Yellowstone.
Run, run, run!
The sudden geyser eruption sending tourists sprinting to safety.
Walloped by a whale. The boat capsized after a giant humpback whale breached the surface. We hear from the men on board and the teenagers who rushed in to help.
And Celine's comeback? Touching down in Paris with a big question, will she take the world stage for the Olympics opening ceremony? Plus, Lara and James are back at it.
If we could just add CGI water, we would be so ready.
Do we look utterly insane?
Ready to roll on the rapids in the new Olympic sport, kayak cross.
USA! USA!
Hang on, team.
Live in Times Square, this is Good Morning America.
As you can see, our team is all in on the Summer Games. You don't want to miss Lara and James' latest adventure.
I just want to hear him say utterly insane.
Yeah. I love how he says everything James says.
Yes.
Sounds great.
Absolutely. Quite the dynamic duo for sure. That'll be fun. Also ahead, we are tracking the major Delta flight disruptions this morning. Now in their 6th day with 6,000 Delta cancellations since Friday. You're looking live here. This is Atlanta, one of the busiest airports in the nation. We'll tell you the latest on the federal investigation and what Delta is saying this morning.
First, all the fallout from the assassination attempt on former President Trump. New video from the roof released. The Secret Service asked Trump to stop holding outdoor rallies, and the Secret Service director has resigned. Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas starts us off from Washington. Good morning, Pierre.
George, good morning. Our audience is about to see the frantic seconds in the moments after the gunman tried to kill former President Trump. It's all caught on police body cam video. And warning to our family at home, what you're about to see may be disturbing.
This morning, new helmet camera video obtained by ABC News showing the moments law enforcement raced to that roof.
Go.
After a sniper killed the gunman who opened fire at a Trump rally. Officers climbing up a ladder.
Thanks, brother. Yep.
In chilling detail, the video shows an assault-style rifle lying next to the dead body of shooter Thomas Matthew Crooks. A trail of blood seen streaming down that sloped roof. An officer kneels down by the gunman. There appears to be a small device next to the shooter that was not seen earlier. The officer takes out the battery, then pulling out a phone as he checks the gunman's pockets.
A rangefinder. I think it's in the cargo pocket.
Police also seen counting the shell casings.
Looks like what, at least 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. At least 8.
At one point, a law enforcement official who appears to be a Secret Service agent and another officer heard discussing the evidence the shooter was believed to have left behind.
And this is his bike with the stuff. And our sniper seen him walking away from that, I believe.
This image clearly visible on the phone held by the local officer wearing the helmet cam. The new video comes amid mounting scrutiny aimed at the Secret Service and how it handled the assassination attempt, both before and after. The alleged lack of transparency costing the head of the Secret Service her job. Kim Cheadle, after vowing to stay, telling her workforce she no longer wanted to be, quote, a distraction. And now multiple sources telling ABC News that the Secret Service has asked the Trump campaign to consider not holding outdoor rallies in the wake of the assassination attempt and the heightened threat environment.
The FBI director will be on Capitol Hill later this morning, where he will face questions about what took place and is likely to provide an update on what he is calling an extremely dangerous threat environment, Robin.
Thank you, Pierre. Appreciate your reporting. Now the latest on the race for the White House. Vice President Kamala Harris, who is now the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee, ramping up her campaign after her first rally in the key battleground state of Wisconsin. Let's go to our chief White House correspondent, Mary Bruce, for the details. Good morning to you, Mary.
Good morning, Robin. Well, I can tell you the energy in that room at that rally was palpable. The crowd was fired up and energized. It was the largest crowd the Democrats have seen in this race so far. And from the moment Kamala Harris stepped onto that stage, it was clear this is now a whole new race. This morning, Kamala Harris is hitting the ground running. Her first campaign rally in battleground Wisconsin, electrifying a crowd of 3,000 supporters.
We have doors to knock on, we have phone calls to make, we have voters to register, and we have an election to win.
Harris already now the presumptive Democratic nominee, as President Biden prepares to address the nation about his historic decision to bow out of the race. With a little over 100 days until the election, the vice president pitting her record against Donald Trump's. Arguing as the former Attorney General of California, she's uniquely qualified to prosecute the case against him.
I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
And she's wasting no time getting at the issues that will determine this race.
We who believe in reproductive freedom will stop Donald Trump's extreme abortion bans because we trust women to make decisions about their own body and not have their government tell them what to do.
But also leaning into the economic issues at the top of mind for so many voters.
America has tried these failed economic policies before, but we are not going back.
This morning, the first poll since Biden withdrew showing Harris has a slight lead over Trump. A lead that doubles if third-party candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is in the mix. But this race will come down to a handful of battleground states where Trump has been leading for weeks. And that's where Harris's pick for a running mate could come into play. Sources tell ABC News vetting has already begun. For now, at least 4 names on the list. Josh Shapiro, the popular governor of must-win Pennsylvania. Senator Mark Kelly of critical Arizona, an astronaut and the husband of former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. Andy Beshear, the young governor who just won re-election in deep red Kentucky. And Governor Roy Cooper, elected twice in North Carolina, a state Democrats have been investing in heavily, hoping to flip blue. Now, a senior administration official tells us that right now Kelly and Shapiro are the leading candidates. But of course, this list could change in the coming weeks. And Harris doesn't just have the ability to focus on the race for now. She also has to balance this new role with her official duties. And today that includes a speech in Indiana. And tomorrow, a meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu back in Washington. Robin.
That's right, Mary. Our thanks to you. President Biden set to address the nation tonight for the first time since dropping out of the race. Our senior White House correspondent, Selina Wang, has the latest. Good morning, Selina.
Good morning, Robin. This will be a historic moment when President Biden addresses the nation tonight from the Oval Office. For the first time, he'll explain why he decided to drop out of this race, and he'll also focus on what lies ahead and what he wants to do for the rest of his term. Now, Biden finally returned to the White House yesterday after isolating with COVID in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware for more than 5 days. His doctor says that he no longer has symptoms and has tested negative for COVID. A source close to the president tells me that he started working working on that speech while he was still isolating, then huddled with his speechwriters back at the White House. Now, Biden still has 6 months left of his presidency, and he says he's determined to do everything he can to accomplish his goals, both at home and abroad. That includes lowering costs for Americans and trying to end this war in Gaza. The president is still planning to meet with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House tomorrow. But now Biden also has a new goal, and that is to ensure Vice President Kamala Harris succeeds him in the Oval Office. And I'm told that tonight President Biden will be speaking from the heart. Robin.
All right, Selina, thank you. And we're going to have live coverage of President Biden's speech, which is tonight with David Muir and the Powerhouse political team. That's at 8 Eastern right here on ABC, George.
Okay, right now we're going to talk about Donald Trump stepping up his attacks on Kamala Harris as he hits the campaign trail for the first time since President Biden dropped out of the race. Rachel Scott is covering the Trump campaign. Good morning, Rachel.
Hey, George, good morning to you. Yes, in just a few hours, former President Donald Trump heads to North Carolina to hold his first rally since President Biden dropped out of the race. The former president has been clearly frustrated that, in his words, he has to start all over again with a new rival, now Vice President Kamala Harris. And he has spent days attacking President Biden, even though he dropped out of the race. Now he is starting to switch gears, going after the vice president on everything from the administration's handling of immigration and the border to also her failed bid for the White House in 2020. On a press call with reporters, Trump did make one thing very clear, though. He does want to debate Kamala Harris before the November election, saying that candidates have an obligation to get up on that debate stage. There will be one notable change to his rally today in North Carolina that will be different from that rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, where he survived that attempted assassination on his life. This rally will be held indoors. The former president and his campaign clearly heeding those warnings from the Secret Service about holding those outdoor rallies that you just heard from Pierre. George.
Okay, Rachel, thanks. And Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is addressing Congress this afternoon. He'll also meet with President Biden, Vice President Harris, and former President Trump this week. Capitol bracing for protests ahead of Netanyahu's speech. Chief National Correspondent Matt Gutman is on the scene in Washington. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, George. And ahead of that address, this part of the Capitol is on lockdown. There are snow plows in the boulevards here. Just on the other side, you might be able to make out some of the placards of the tens of thousands of protesters expected here. There are fleets of police, even tow trucks. They'll be backed by thousands of officers from multiple agencies, from the Capitol Police to the NYPD. Now, this is expected to be the single largest protest event in Washington since January 6th. We got a sliver of what might be in store when hundreds of people thronged a section of the Capitol building yesterday, demanding that the U.S. stop arming Israel. There were dozens of arrests made. This will be the fourth time that Netanyahu addresses Congress, more than anybody in history. And notably, there are members of Congress who are saying that they are going to boycott the event. And Netanyahu facing a lot of backlash back home, also for dragging his feet from entering a ceasefire and hostage release that would end that devastating conflict in Gaza. And notably absent from today's address is going to be Vice President Harris. She says she has another commitment, but she will meet Netanyahu later this week, as will President Biden. And Netanyahu is set to travel down to Mar-a-Lago to meet with former President Trump at the end of the week.
All right, Matt Gutman for us. Thank you. We turn now to those nightmare delays at Delta Airlines. FlightAware showing since Friday, more than 10,000 flights have been canceled on all airlines and 54,000 more delayed. Faith Abube is at the Delta hub at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport in Atlanta. And Faith, Delta has a new promise for customers now. Good morning.
Good morning to you. With 6 days since that global tech outage, Delta says that the impact is diminishing. They said cancellations are going down about 50% every single day. But considering they canceled more than 500 flights yesterday, that means potentially another day of travel headaches for customers.
This morning, chaos and growing passenger outrage as Delta Airlines struggles to recover from that global IT outage. The major Delta flight disruptions now in their 6th day, leaving lots of passengers stranded at airports.
This is our 4th cancellation.
I just wish we'd given up and stayed home.
The U.S. Department of Transportation saying since Friday, Delta has canceled more than 6,000 flights. The airline now the subject of a federal investigation.
We estimate that more than 500,000 passengers have been impacted by this. There is something unique to Delta that requires specific attention.
In a company memo, Delta saying they're seeing day-over-day progress. And, quote, teams are working around the clock to reposition planes and people to where they need to be so we can return to normal operations by the end of the week. Rochelle Akufo saying Delta canceled her and her daughter's flight to London, the airline rebooking them with a layover of more than 340 hours.
The math is not mathing. Like, in what world would I have a two-week layover?
And this morning, Delta issuing a new statement saying in part, quote, "Please accept our sincere apologies for the disruption to your recent travel plans caused by a vendor technology outage affecting airlines and companies worldwide." And Delta and Robin, this morning, this is the best the ticketing counter has looked at Delta. Delta is now offering to issue 10,000 bonus miles to affected customers and also plans to reimburse customers for reasonable expenses. Robin.
They just want to get home or wherever they're going right now. All right, Faith, our thanks to you. Now, a powerful eruption caught on camera at Yellowstone National Park that sent debris raining down on visitors. Mola Lenghi has that story for us. Good morning to you, Mola.
Well, good morning, Robin. Yeah, that eruption proving spectacular and terrifying all at the same time. Scientists at Yellowstone National Park telling us this was a random event happening without warning.
Run, 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 run! Screams of terror as this geyser in Yellowstone National Park exploded without warning Tuesday.
There's boulders, rocks falling all over us.
Watch as the plume of black smoke quickly permeates the air. People running for cover.
We kind of went into fight or flight mode. We grabbed our kids, started running, just instinctively trying to get as far as we can from the explosion.
Park officials say no one was injured, but the boardwalk used by parkgoers completely destroyed. Some seen stepping over mud and rocks.
God, I'm shaking.
The explosion took place at the Biscuit Basin thermal area, roughly 2 miles north of the famous Old Faithful geyser, which officials say erupts every 90 minutes.
Once the explosion was over and I saw the damage, then I was really scared.
Experts say hydrothermal explosions occur when water underground rapidly changes from liquid to steam, the transition expanding the surface, resulting in a violent eruption, a phenomenon common in Yellowstone.
What happened is that an unusual event where a lot of pressure built up, and with that so much pressure, it again forced its way out and it erupted. Then it carried a bunch of rock and dust up in the air with it.
Well, parts of Yellowstone's Biscuit Basin will be closed temporarily for visitor safety. Meanwhile, National Park geologists are investigating this event, guys.
We're so glad nobody was injured. All right. Thank you so much, Mola.